Today on Switch to Linux, we want to talk about the Netflix and Warner Brothers potential merger and why do we care on a Linux and technology channel? Interesting. Welcome back to Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Leave us a like and a comment down below. And today we do want to talk about this potential Netflix Warner Brother merger. And I threw something up on the Matrix server about this. And of course, some people are like, well, what do I care? I don't watch movies anyway. And the challenge is that this could impact back catalogs and the availability of physical discs, even of older movies you might like. And on top of that, it is extraordinarily anti-consumer, even though they seem to think it's super pro-consumer because, you know, they're all kind of backwards up there. But the point is here is that there is a lot I want to say, because one of the things that I really got into when I switched to Linux is I got back into movies. Years and years ago, I was a movie aficionado. I loved movies of all forms. I even wrote a book about the impact of media entertainment on Christians particularly, and, looking at the major errors. Some people are like, you can watch everything non-critically, and other people say, oh, you can't watch anything that has an F word in it, and there's a lot more nuance of a position that we might take on such things. So I've seen some of the most intriguingly and vile films you can possibly imagine. Like if you haven't seen the movie Kids, wow, there's an interesting one. I've seen some movies that are pretty bad, and like things like Anchorman, couldn't even watch it. Zero interest in anything. First, I have zero interest in anything Will Ferrell does. But on top of that movie, it was vile for the sake of being a vile comedy. Can't stand it. At least Kids had some moral point behind its vileness, But the point here is that movies and film is something that used to be important to me, and then it kind of fell out of favor as, it's like it was just difficult to always grab the content and things like that. And what I found out is I could watch the movies that I owned digitally, in addition to actually putting the physical discs in. But the physical discs have a lot of major benefit. One factor of the physical discs is I love movie trivia and commentaries, Criterion editions, alternative endings. All these types of things are really good, and they're oftentimes inside of the physical media. Not the VHS, of course, but obviously the DVDs, Blu-rays, all the special features, special editions. These are all very, very good things. And on top of that, talking about preserving our culture, Bill Nye the Science Guy comes back on after a big popularity, comes back in, but of course they censored one episode. We're not getting into what it was and why, but the one episode got censored off of there. And then you look back and we think about how the Rod Dahl, who, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, and things like that, how the publishers are editing those books to make them less offensive. And the fact is that that author, he put that offense in there for the same purpose, just to illustrate his point. The same reason Mark Twain writes some hard R words in here that, everybody that happens to be a performance gangster rapper is allowed to say, but every pasty dude like me can't, for whatever weird reason. And the fact of the matter is they try to edit all those books out. So if you have a physical copy of those books that you purchased 10, 15 years ago, you will have the original copies as the author intended. But if you want to buy one of those copies of those books nowadays, you might have some editing and some censorship going on. So I really think we need to preserve a lot of our culture. And one of the powers that we have is ownership. We want to own that film going forward. If I happen to get some subscriber-based system and they just decide, we just don't want you seeing that one Bill Nye episode, well, we'll just happen to play the whole thing except that one thing, that one episode. You can't see that one. It was too controversial, and the problem here is that when everything goes into this subscription model, everything goes into a service. And, we are marching very closely to this 2030, you will own nothing and be happy. And it's not the evil companies necessarily that's pushing it on us. They are, but they are doing so because we are buying it. And you need to stop buying it. We need to stop buying it. So what is going on? Now, I've seen a number of different videos on this, and a lot of people are saying some things. Even very, very large and good content creators are missing a few facts. All right. The first thing I need to tell you is that when there is a big merger like this, it has to go through a period of announcement and then government scrutiny. So there are a number of people that said they just merged, and we're talking huge, popular, million subscriber plus content creators that say this just happened. No, it did not. What happened is Warner Brothers put out an advisory that, hey, we're kind of going broke. We're looking to merge with somebody. And a group of people came up with, Paramount was really considered the leading contender there. Of course, they had some connections to the Trump administration, so playing nice with the people involved in regulatory practices and things like that. So you have that going. And then there was another company up there as well. And then Netflix runs in with a bigger deal. Now, the Netflix deal was mostly in stock, whereas the Paramount deal is going to say, here's a big old bag of cash. And so the Paramount deal was projected to be the winner here, but Netflix comes in with a higher one, actually overvaluing the company, offering much more money, but doing so in the terms of stock. Now, they just won the bid. That does not mean they merged. What that means is that they are going through all the paperwork. In fact, if the government tells them that they cannot merge, Netflix is still going to have to pay Warner Brothers, I think it's $5.8 billion. So even if they are unsuccessful, Netflix is going to be paying Warner Brothers billions of dollars. All right. And so what happened here is that a bidding process went through. Netflix is the number one contender. So when people say they just merged, that is not true. They have announced their merger intention. Now it has to go through regulatory scrutiny. Now the DOJ has a chance to look into it. The FTC has a chance to look into it because we're dealing with a company causing effectively a monopoly. Now, unfortunately, in the current administration, things like businesses and monopolies, they tend to kind of look the other way. That is a big downside of this administration. Did I make a mistake in how I voted? No, there are other things that I care about, like, a safe world and things like that. But I don't want to get any further into that. We'll just put it this way and say, they didn't completely merge. It has to go through a regulatory process. Now, the problem here is that there is a vertical expansion and there is a lateral expansion. A vertical expansion would be if Netflix buys up Hulu. That would be a lateral expansion, or a vertical expansion, because it's basically the same industry moving them higher up in their subscriber count by merging them together. But this is a lateral merger, which puts them into a position to have gathered a large portion of a slightly different way of doing things. So Netflix right now is primarily streaming. Warner Brothers is primarily a production company. The problem here is that Netflix cares only about the streaming numbers and bolstering the streaming numbers. While they have had some things go into the theaters, they tend to do very short release into theaters and very limited. The one thing Netflix does not like is the large period of exclusivity inside of the major theater companies. So many people are saying that this would actually effectively end the theater going experience, because Netflix is like, well, it's a better consumer. It's better pro-consumer if people don't have to go out to this horrible, dingy theater. They can just get it automatically on their Netflix account because we have the Netflix going. Well, that's anti-consumer to me, not pro-consumer, because some people like to go to a movie theater and see amazing screens and loud noises and big explosions, particularly if you like Mega Bay films, right? And so who else makes big explosions, you know? But the fact here is that what this type of acquisition would do, if it is successful at going through, it would hurt the theaters. Also, we know that Netflix is one of the major contributors to pushing out a lot of AI slop. So a whole group of people working in Hollywood effectively put together a letter pseudo-anonymously, because they don't really want to out themselves exactly, declaring this would cause a massive loss in jobs. Because what Netflix will end up doing is taking the Warner Brothers production and merging it into Netflix, causing the potential for a lot of things going digital only. Now, in our short-term world, they said they would keep these things kind of how they are, like separate companies for a period of time, but they're really only guaranteeing movies would continue to go to theaters for longer productions, as Warner Brothers typically did, until 2029. And so that's really, if this merger goes through in Q3 of 2026 is what they're saying, that's only guaranteeing going into the movie theaters for 2 to 3 more years. After that, they can make their own decisions at another time. And so that's a fundamental problem. But for me, the biggest thing this does is this gives Netflix ownership over the back catalog of all of these IPs, which includes the DC Comics, it includes the Harry Potter films, and those franchises. There's a couple other ones as well. Now, the problem here is that, we also have HBO Max is caught up in this. So they have said that for at least a couple years, HBO Max would be its own thing. But that type of vertical expansion, they'd probably eventually merge those all together like Disney's been doing, because Disney's been doing this. You know, they buy up Hulu and Hulu just becomes part of it. Your subscription goes up, but you now have Disney and Hulu. So Netflix looks at us, go, look at this. We got all these guys over here with Netflix. We got all these guys over here at HBO. Let's just merge them all together and just up the cost a little bit. That way, everyone's all the same. Everyone's happy, Take whatever the most expensive one of those is, add $1 or $2, merge all the catalogs together, and hey, look at those numbers. Amazing. Looks kind of like a monopoly. Not that we prosecute monopolies anymore, The monopoly man with his monocle's happy these days. He's got like 5 hotels there on Park Place, But the challenge here is that now a lot of the articles is focusing around the theatrical marketplace. But what nobody's really talking about as much is the historical discography. Wow, I can't say that word these days. It is too late at night. I'm recording this like really late. All right. So I actually first saw this on a director's YouTube channel I like to watch, and so I didn't hear about this until then. Of course, that was, I think, I saw that on Friday or something, and now I've seen a number of different people cover this article here. But really, that guy was the only one that was mentioning the back catalog ownership, because they then wanted to ask a question about what about owning DVDs? What's Netflix's general take on it? Because, I have Stranger Things because you can get the DVDs for them. Yeah, I find it to be an interesting one. I'm not sure about that last series. Ugh, that tentacly alien there. Ugh, I don't know about that. But anyway, the first couple seasons was pretty good. I have it on DVD. So I've seen it. And the fact is that I like those types of things. And this group here, what's on Netflix.com, they actually gave us a listing of everything, all of those Netflix exclusives that ended up making their way to physical media. And the reason this happened is because more often than not, even though they were Netflix exclusives, they actually were produced by these other companies. In fact, you'll find that many of these that came out on DVD, these ones, 13 Reasons Why, and by the way, most of these shows, like new stuff, I was a movie connoisseur a long time ago. New stuff, I don't watch modern stuff because I've never had a streaming service. I've never paid for a streaming service, and I have no intention of ever paying for a streaming service. 13 Reasons Why, it was produced by Paramount. We have Paramount. Let's see, Universal Music Group, Beatbugs, There's Shout Factory. Look at this, Castlevania, Warner Brothers. So these production studios have effectively produced these things, and the only reason these physical media are making it out is because Netflix only has the streaming rights. They don't have the rights to release or not release it. So it's up to the individual company. In Castlevania's case, it was up to Warner Brothers to look at it and go, hey, is it worth us releasing this or not? And it based on profitability. So one of the fun trivia ones for my age, if you're an old guy like me, you remember the old Nickelodeon show, Salute Your Shorts. And it was absolutely beloved by everyone that I knew at that time. Leave a comment down below if you like Salute Your Shorts. And what's funny is Danny Cooksey, who is the guy that plays the red-haired bully in that, he has actually been leading the charge for years, like decades, to get that released on DVD with high quality. The reason it's not, according to him, the reason it's not is because they use too much music in that, and licensing all that music is so expensive, they don't think they'd ever make their money back. Now, the good news about it, if you really love that show, you can go to the Internet Archives because they're not released on DVD or anywhere. They have all been uploaded to the Internet Archive. Now, they are slightly out of order. You have to check your season lists and your episodes and fix them. But you can download them all. And they're not the best of quality, but hey, you can at least still watch Salute Your Shorts. But the reason that never made it onto DVD is because of the music licensing. So that was really the thing. But what we see going through this list here is in some of these too, they really only release some of them. So F is for Family, only season 1 has been released on DVD. Amazon likes doing this. Let's go ahead and make episode 1, 2, and 3 free with your Prime, but you have to rent season 4, or episode 4. So this might be a way for them to release a couple DVDs just to get you to sign up to Netflix to purchase more. And so in my opinion, this is going to cause a lot of problems with getting physical media. And if Netflix now owns one of these production studios and they're making the calls about what gets released out, they think that if a DVD is released out for some production, they think that a DVD released out for some production is going to hurt their bottom line because it's going to prevent maybe one more person won't stream because all they want to do is buy this. So this merger is really bad for us who like archiving the movies. It's bad for us who like digital platforms. It's bad for those of us who want to have watch our movies from a central location within our house. And the fact of the matter is that this Warner Brother merger with Netflix, if this is successful in going through, this is going to have a long-term ripple effect, which is going to hurt old archives, damage the movie-going experience, and bolster Netflix's position in the global economy, effectively producing yet another worldwide market. And this is where the encrapification of the world comes from. So we need to make a pretty big stink about this and let any form of legislators or any form of regulatory bodies know that we think this is a really bad idea. Will that help? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the fact of the matter is, if Netflix now controls one of the bigger studios, then that bigger studio will make the decision to stop releasing physical media and maybe even stop releasing things to theaters just because, hey, Netflix bottom line is all about the subscriber account because they do not want you to own anything. But the fact of the matter is we need ownership. We need ownership, and we need to take action on that front. So let me know your thoughts about this. Do you like the old movies, the new movies? Do you buy streaming services or not? Are you getting frustrated with all the streaming stuff? Let me know your thoughts about all those things in the comments down below.